Is this an historic moment in the Middle East? Israel, Lebanon and the United States have signed a framework agreement. It's designed to pave the way for peace between two long-time enemies. But with key details undisclosed and Hezbollah warning the deal could trigger civil conflict, the road ahead looks anything but straightforward. Israeli forces control a swathe of territory along its border with Lebanon in what Israel describes as a security zone. The agreement would see Israel withdraw from some areas, handing over control to the Lebanese army. Precise details of what's in the agreement haven't been made public, but this is what's being reported. Israeli troops will withdraw from 2 pilot zones. Lebanon's army then takes control of those zones. Israeli forces will remain in a security zone. Hezbollah is expected to disarm in southern Lebanon, and there will be more talks aimed at agreeing a permanent peace deal. The Trump administration is hailing the agreement as a breakthrough, while acknowledging major obstacles do lie ahead. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking at the signing ceremony.
Today, as I told all the parties here today, it's the beginning of the beginning. There's a lot of work ahead. We don't in any way underestimate the difficulty of the task ahead, but we understand the importance of it, how vital it is, and we are honored to have played a part in bringing this together.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also welcomed the agreement. He described Israel's continued military presence in southern Lebanon as one of its biggest achievements.
The most important thing is that Israel will remain in the security zone. This is a major achievement, and we will maintain it as long as Hezbollah continues to pose a threat to the state of Israel.
Hanin Ghaddar at the Washington Institute's Linda and Tony Rubin program on Arab politics is an expert on Hezbollah and Lebanese politics. How significant would you say this agreement is? Would you call it historic or just symbolic?
Hi, Ben, and thank you for having me. I would definitely call it historic as an agreement. Of course, the devil will lay in the implementation. We don't know how the implementation is going to go. Iran might be a spoiler. However, as the agreement itself is historic, as it is the first signed agreement between Lebanon and Israel since '83. In '83, Lebanon and Israel signed a peace agreement, which was immediately toppled a few months later by the Syrian regime. Today is the first signed agreement ever since, and after a direct negotiation between Lebanon and Israel. So on both levels, it is actually historic. They talked to each other and they signed an agreement. And it's better than we expected because, one, it is actually an agreement, not another letter of intent, which makes a huge difference. It's a commitment. And two, it actually includes and involves everyone's and everything. It really takes into consideration Lebanon's sovereignty. It tells Iran that the Lebanese file will be handled by Lebanon. And it takes also Israel's security into consideration. So for everyone, this is really a big win.
You say for everyone, and everything is covered in this, but what about Hezbollah disarming? Isn't that the central contradiction of this pact?
No, this is very clear. The agreement is really, I know what you mean, obviously. The agreement states it very clearly that withdrawal is linked to disarmament. Israel will start with some pilot zones, allow the Lebanese armed forces to deploy, and this deployment is not going to be enough. So it's not going to be that like the 2006 post-war deployment of the Lebanese army. It has to come with some kind of disarmament. And this is a trick. Of course, the agreement itself, it includes disarmament. And now the heavyweight is really on the Lebanese armed forces in the sense that either they have to do something before America or Israel change their mind, or otherwise, if they don't really do anything, if the pilot zones end up not being successful for both the Americans and the Israelis, then this agreement will be in jeopardy. So Lebanon signed to disarm. They have to disarm, and if they don't, they will be held accountable. This is not just the LAF plan to disarm. This is not Lebanon saying that they want to disarm. This is an agreement where Lebanon signed a commitment to disarm. This will take time, and everybody understands that. Nobody expects the Lebanese army to disarm Hezbollah tomorrow. That's why we're talking about pilot zones. But also it includes cleaning the army of Hezbollah's collaborators, Also, disarmament is not only military. There's a lot of levels of disarmament, including the financial part of the disarmament and the political part, where Hezbollah is infiltrating also financial institutions, judicial institutions, and political and security institutions. Disarmament really starts there, and then the army will be able to go after Hezbollah's arms. This is a tricky and complicated process. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it is really the only and last choice for Lebanon. Otherwise, Iran will succeed in taking over Lebanon's decisions.
You say it won't happen tomorrow, but what sort of position is the Lebanese army in to disarm Hezbollah?
Today, the Lebanese army was represented in these talks. They have been present in these talks for the past two rounds. And although inside Lebanon, there's always talk about civil peace and trying not to confront Hezbollah, but today the Lebanese army, because they were present during these negotiations, which were 4 days of negotiations, and they were represented, they agreed. They committed to disarm Hezbollah. So that's their official position. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be an issue, and the Americans have also a leverage over the Lebanese army, which is the assistance program. So they will have to, hold this as their responsibility.
Well, at the same time, Hezbollah figures a warning of civil war if the agreement is imposed. Is that a real threat or rhetoric aimed at deterring Beirut from implementing the deal?
Of course, it's a rhetoric. We all lived a civil war in Lebanon. People my generation lived a civil war in Lebanon. Civil war is people fighting people. There are no ingredients of civil war in Lebanon today. No one wants to fight anyone. Hezbollah is threatening with a civil war in the sense that if they were confronted, they will shoot back. But this is not a civil war. This is the state's legitimate army going after an insurgency. That's not the civil war. The Lebanese armed forces have already gone after insurgencies before and won, including ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and others. And this is another insurgency that needs to be dealt with. It's not a civil war.
Okay, but if not civil war, are we talking political paralysis, street violence, something along those lines?
Okay. So what they can do, I'll tell you what they can do. They already gathered a lot of their supporters on motorcycles today, like to roam around Beirut. They tried to cut roads with burned tires. They tried to surround the Sarai. The army actually confronted them. They used tear gas and they used violence in order to stop them, which is a good sign, meaning that if they try violence inside Beirut, inside the streets, try cutting roads, they understood today that the Lebanese armed forces is not going to allow it. Two, they usually cannot do that with their allies, especially Amal, the other Shia party represented by Nabih Berri, the Speaker of the Parliament. Last time they used violence in May 7, 2008 against the government and against Beirut and the mountains of Lebanon, Amal participated. This time around, it doesn't seem that Amal is going to play a role in this insurgency. So it's going to be very difficult for them to do that. Can they go back to assassinations? Yes, but it's not going to be as easy. There's going to be accountability. Three, they want to topple the government. They do not have the numbers to topple the government. So it's going to be very difficult if the Lebanese government holds and insists on ongoing. They cannot topple the government. They can use violence. They can use street clashes. But if the army continues to stop it, and the army continues to do what it did today, they will fail.
The other thing that stands out to me in this agreement is this talk of pilot areas. Israel says it will hand over only 2 of them while maintaining a security zone elsewhere. Won't many Lebanese view that as a continued occupation, making any wider peace protest very difficult?
So, of course, it is an occupation. Like many Lebanese see this as an occupation. But at the end of the day, Israel after October 7 is not Israel before October 7. And this is not an occupation in the terms of just occupying Lebanon for the sake of occupying Lebanon. Israel, in this agreement and during these negotiations, made it very clear that they do not have any territorial claim in Lebanon. It's only about protecting the residents of Israel in the north. So they want to withdraw. However, they cannot withdraw and allow Hezbollah back to their borders. That's another risk, another ingredient for another October 7. So that's why it's sequential, gradual withdrawal tied to disarmament. And this is really the trick here. Pilot zones, if we only end up with an Israeli withdrawal from pilot zones and army deployment, that's not going to be enough. The army will need to disarm Hezbollah. There might be a success in the first two examples, but then going forward to north of Litani and beyond north of Litani, this is going to get tricky. And honestly, I don't think there's another choice. We don't have another way but the Lebanese armed forces finally deciding to do this. Otherwise, Hezbollah will not surrender its arms through dialogue or because of an agreement. It has to be taken from them. Iran will play a big role here to make sure that this fails, but that's where Lebanon and Israel and America have to stand and hold on this agreement and protect it, because Iran is going to use Hezbollah to drag Israel back into another war and say, see, Israel was not serious about it. Hezbollah might fire more rockets at Israel and Israel might respond. So this is going to be one of the tools that Iran has. Another thing, they're going to go to the US and say, the MOU with you is going to be on hold. We're not going to continue our negotiations unless Israel completely withdraws from Lebanon. And they might actually do that. They have hinted at that before and said that we want full withdrawal before continuing these talks. They might come back to that. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but it also depends. Trump now has two scenarios. They has Rubio's successful agreement that was done between Lebanon and Israel. And he has also the Switzerland negotiations where Iran wants Lebanon to be under its own, umbrella. So really it depends today. If this happens, it depends on what Trump decides to do. Hopefully the agreement is attractive enough for him to say, well, we have a solid agreement. We don't want to jeopardize it. We hope so.
I want to ask you about Iran in a moment. Just first of all, is there consensus in Lebanon today on what should happen to Hezbollah's weapons?
Well, according to many polls, observations, and public discussions, around between 70 and 80% of the Lebanese want Hezbollah disarmed, including many Shia, because the resistance rhetoric, where Hezbollah's arms was in a way appealing to some people, is dead. Resistance is dead. Resistance today failed to liberate the land. It failed to fight Israel. It failed to do anything. And instead, it brought destruction and displacement to Lebanon. So today, the resistance rhetoric failed. That's why people see Hezbollah's arms today as a danger, not as a protection. And the Shia themselves, the Shia community itself, are looking for an alternative, although discreetly. They also in the big number of more than half of the Lebanese also want peace with Israel, and this is something that is unprecedented. The taboo in the public opinion about peace has been broken. People are talking about it. These are huge opportunities for both Lebanon and Israel, but also the international community to hold on to what the street wants more than what the political dynamics are indicating. The street wants disarmament. The street wants peace. And this is really what Lebanon is about today.
But looking forward, once those weapons are taken away, where would they go? What would happen to the weapons?
They should be destroyed. We go back to the agreement of November 2024, the ceasefire agreement, the first one, which was obviously was violated. But it was very clear about the mechanism that was set by the US in Lebanon to share information intelligence. And this is where some of the arms that was seized south of Litani was destroyed. And this is really the understanding that today, the rest of Hezbollah's arms that haven't been destroyed already by Israel, right? That we know that at least 80%, if not more, of Hezbollah's strategic weapons, that is missiles and drone factories and precision missiles, have been destroyed. So whatever is left should be destroyed as well. Either is going to be destroyed by Israel, or it's going to be destroyed locally by the Lebanese armed forces. One way or another, they are going to be destroyed. The other challenge is really make sure that Hezbollah doesn't rearm. And they can rearm as long as they can get money from Iran. And if Iran starts making money, Hezbollah will get this money and they will regenerate their arsenal. The challenge today, that's why it's included actually in this agreement. The challenge today is to also cut all the funding routes from Iran to Hezbollah. And this is included in the agreement because everybody realizes that disarmament is not enough. Dismantling the whole ecosystem of Hezbollah is more needed today.
Well, Netanyahu says the agreement is a blow to Iran. True or false?
Oh, big time. Everyone sees it that way because you have to see the reactions of Hezbollah's officers and supporters and officials in Beirut. The social media is flooding with their negative comments. They're pissed. They're very pissed. The Iranians are pissed. Hezbollah is pissed because it's very simple. Last week, Iran had Lebanon fired. Today, Lebanon and Israel and the Americans decided that Lebanon and Lebanon only is in charge of Lebanon's file. And this was a big blow to Iran. And they basically, Lebanon, instead of saying, okay, we will talk to the Iranian, although Lebanon is part of the mechanism that was established in Switzerland between the Americans, Lebanese, Iranians, and the Qataris, excluding Israel. Today, this is completely countered this whole mechanism, and it was a big blow to the Iranians who thought that game is over. So today, everybody told Iran that game is not over. We have an agreement. You didn't even reach an agreement. The MOU is not an agreement. What we had today was an agreement, and this was something that the State Department was very insistent on, that this is an agreement, and this is where we're going from today. So yes, it's a big blow to Iran.
Okay, a couple more things I want to know. How badly has the war weakened Hezbollah?
The war has definitely weakened Hezbollah militarily and security-wise, intelligence. The war has really destroyed most of Hezbollah's strategic weapons. The war has destroyed most of Hezbollah's military infrastructure, including the commandment structure. They do not really have any commanders left. That's why you have a lot of the IRGC officials in Lebanon today really leading the battle and making decisions for Hezbollah. This is what Hezbollah is today, is really the IRGC. They have been the Quds force all along, but today they are the IRGC. So they are really, really very weakened. However, they still have political and financial power inside Lebanon via Lebanon's institutions. They still have a deep state supported by their allies inside Lebanese state institutions. And that's why I believe that if we don't really work to purge these state institutions, especially financial, security, and judicial state institutions, and military, of course, from Hezbollah's collaborators and allies from within the institutions, then Hezbollah will be able to regenerate. So the work is a lot. It's not just military, and we need to look at all the levels of Hezbollah as an ecosystem.
And Iran's been weakened too. How much influence does Tehran still retain inside Lebanon?
It has exactly what Hezbollah's power inside Lebanon. Iran has been, working on Hezbollah for a very long time. Iran does not see Hezbollah as a proxy. We always say that Hezbollah is a proxy. Hezbollah is not Iran's proxy. Hezbollah is part of the Iranian IRGC system. It has been part of the Quds Force, which is the regional arm of the IRGC. And today it is the Quds Force. There's no one else but Hezbollah and the Quds Force today. So Iran is Hezbollah. When Hezbollah is powerful, Iran is powerful. When Hezbollah is weakened in Lebanon, it means Iran is weakened in Lebanon. That's why today they are best.
Finally, what should we be watching out for now to judge if this deal does succeed or fail?
I would say two things. One, how Iran is going to react. Hezbollah, we know they are pissed that they are mobilizing, street action, but how Iran is going to react in terms of in Switzerland. Are they going to put Lebanon back on the table as the first item and insist on complete withdrawal? And then we'll see how America is gonna react. And this is a big turning point. And the second one is how Lebanon is going to implement this agreement, because again, the devil lies in the implementation. If the pilot zones were successful, then we will be able to move on and say, we can reach something, because this is just the beginning of a long road of disarmament of Hezbollah, dismantling of its system, and reaching peace with Israel. We need this to be successful.
Okay, we will be watching closely. Thank you very much for the analysis. It's been extremely insightful, Hanin. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Well, let us know what you think about the prospects of peace in the Middle East. I'm Ben Fajzullin. See you again soon.